So we're back. Made a video earlier, sort of like my morning constitutional. I was up at the chalkboard. I showed my constellations of index cards. I showed my card files, my card boxes. I reviewed the video. Now I'm going to stay seated. I didn't like my gut showing, a little, what do you call, vanity. Took some notes. So basically, what I was thinking, I maybe didn't say in the other video, that I was in what I call full-on analog research mode. And I get into some of the methodologies of that because I work in a workspace that acts as an art studio. I say it a million times, but redundancies is my key. Yeah, so it's an art studio, it's a sound design lab and a research lab. I've been thinking about like what why does methodology matter, you know? Like, it's not on my index cards necessarily, but like I think it matters because it's an experimental method, it's iterative, it's evolutionary. You can get lost in the work. That's why it's important to have like in your life hygiene, you need to have like day-tight containers. You have to have a start time for the day and an end time, and the day-tight, it's from Dale Carnegie, day-tight containers, you know. And the work is the same way. You need boundaries. You need to know when you start a work session, when you end, when you go back into life space. When I share like a workspace with my life space, call it. So it's tough, you know, but I used to wear like painting clothes, like a uniform, so that I wouldn't, like, if I came out of the studio and I was wearing my painting hat or whatever, I saw myself in the mirror, I knew right away that's like, no, gotta put the painting back into the painting studio, you know, because otherwise you literally can start writing all across the walls, and that's when like it resembles like sort of mental illness. Anyways, it's another story. So I was thinking like that we still think and work like scribes from thousands of years ago, you know. But I hear a lot of people sharing their research online. It's very polished and packaged. It seems prepackaged, and they're not showing necessarily the methodology. Like the methodology happens in the workspace, you know. And it's your research methods, and it's your, me in my case, I do art and research, and it's interdisciplinary, so a lot of methodologies, you know. And the thing is, like, thought is a messy, interwoven, and non-linear. So like when I work at the chalkboard, it's like a non-linear medium. Earlier, what I was doing, you see everything like once it's written on the, like a painting, it's simultaneous, you know. I'll get into this too, like Montage and all that from like Cubism and other artists, you know, who did like showing multiple perspectives, you know. That's the non-linearity. Anyways, so what I was saying about I have a lot of these index card boxes, card files, and you know, you can actually you can even shuffle when they're small like this. You can shuffle the actual, rearrange the boxes. But you can do that with the index cards too. I call them Refcards. You can sort, shuffle, rearrange, modular. So it's modular thoughts. When you stick something like writing is important. Writing it on paper like this is a modular. It can be non-linear, it can be shuffled, it can be rearranged. You can take all these and write as many texts as you want. You can do different constellations. And the modular, like thoughts and modular work like that, to me, it's what I call cultural software. And I'll get into that another time, but I think I have spoken about it before, and it's also modular. I treat it like an actual software development operation, you know, although the software is cultural software, like the Historiotheque itself is software, and I do official releases. I just wrote an official release the other day, because I started it back up, then I closed it down, I shut down, and I restarted it back up. Now I need to document that process further. So the point of this whole methodology, or the methodologies of my art research, you could say it's to generate epiphanies, but in my case they call them historical epiphanies or historiophanies, and I can get into that. But like the montage, did I skip a step? Yeah, I was saying it's modular. It's like an assemblage of disparate elements in a composite whole by way of juxtaposition. It's reminiscent of Soviet cinema of the 1920s. Sergei Eisenstein and Dziga Vertov, who created Man with the Movie Camera. Lev Manovich has an important work on database cinema. And because I was saying thoughts exist as a hyperdimensional cloud of associations. It's like that 3D space of thought, and it could be a higher dimensional, but like I was saying earlier, if you have like my personal index, my research archive, whatever, you have your personal archive, your personal index, and if we like communicate through a book, like I use my archive, I write the book, you read it with your archive, like couldn't we just juxtapose, you know? So I find that a lot of the people are into like podcasts, and I love podcasts, I love watching them, but you're slowed down by the 1D or one-dimensional bottleneck of words. Like it has to be a finished argument, you know? And I was thinking like so sure you can show the logical steps, but in your research, did you skip any steps? Because like, you know, I call it mind-fulness with the hyphen, like the fullness of mind. To get the fullness of an argument, you can't skip any logical steps for reading a book. Like this book here, it's funny, it's like writings by Umberto Eco on medieval thought, and I read the whole section. It was really amazing on Thomas Aquinas' aesthetics and stuff. And he was amazing, Thomas Aquinas. Like he would like apparently like he would dictate to like scribes. He would have like 3 or 4 scribes. He was able to dictate to like one scribe, stop mid-sentence, mid-thought, dictate to another one, come back, and he was working on like multiple streams of different works or sections of works, and he would like do that. Like, I'm not saying I'm Thomas Aquinas, but like in my practice, like it's nonlinear practice. I call it hyper-reflexive design, and it's hyper-reflexive because I'm continuously like reviewing, like I'm doing right now, which I did earlier with the rewatching the video a couple times. And yeah, so like you can get really high velocity work done in very simple methods, you know, index cards, whatever, Refcards. So it's going beyond a single perspective of the linear narrative to see from many angles all at once, like in said Cubist Montage or forms of literary montage. I really like the cut-up novels of William S. Burroughs. To me, he's like the fundamental modern artist. He was also interdisciplinary in mixed art and research. And I talked about discourse, like that picture is like my concept, painting the concepts of history in my history project. And also like, it's kind of like I'm seeing discourse kind of as disembodied. I'll have to get into this at a later time, but what I want to stress, what I find this work stresses the intermediality. I call it strategic intermedia art. It's not multimedia because what I do, I work with like images, sounds, and words, text, and I work like on a concept in a project with underlying conceptual schemes, and it can be quite complex. And each work is like an atomic unit, like an index card, a ref card, and it has a clear start and finish. It's self-sufficient, and I was going to say anyways. The intermediality, like it's intermediate and it's strategic because I'm responding to like events, and continuously like I'm hyper-reflexive in my design work. And I was thinking of like I talked about Walter Benjamin and his idea of like 3-dimensional writing with these card boxes, and like what I was saying about the researcher's archive and the reader's archive. Like I think he was invoking epiphanies, like what he called the dialectical image, you know, unmediated clashes, invoking epiphanies. So I think what I like to say now is that I'm constructing a live, open-ended, hyper-relational environment, the workspace, W space. And something I want to get into another time is agentic AI. But I want to talk about the models of the workspace, because like they talk about world models, and I think if we're having them take care of like workflow, I'll get back to workflows, but like if they need a model of the workspace, I think. Anyways, it links to my Calabrium theory, which is collaborative equilibrium, with collaborative work. Anyways, another thing. I think that, I don't know if it was Benjamin that called it this, a creativity machine. There might be someone else too that worked with machine learning and AI. They called them creativity machines, but that's basically what he was using, the index card and the card files. So as I was saying earlier, the boundaries between the workspace and life space, and between work days or work sessions and work days, it's important because nonlinear practice can be destabilizing. You need strong boundaries between workspace and life space, or else you literally risk, like I said, writing on the walls. Also, this is important because I use the Feldenkrais method in which is also called awareness through movement. I use it in my methods, in my practice, and in Feldenkrais you never force. You go with the flow, the effortless ease, and I'll get back into that. We call parasitic motility, the force. The methodologies basically exist to induce epiphanies. What's an epiphany to me? It's a sudden realization, a sudden insight. It's almost like a supernatural intelligence that they're understanding. It's like understanding when I'm reading or researching something is one thing, but that sudden burst of insight, that's what I call an epiphany, and I call them historiotheques. I can get into that another time. Like you induce, experience, live, and document, and you repeat as needed. There's always a review process. When I start a new work session, I was talking about the personal index. If I give a little history of the workspace theory, started in childhood, I think I might have gotten into this another time, and I'll get into it elsewhere, but it started early. I developed a respect for the workshop of someone in my family, and I wasn't really allowed to go there, and I used to play there. There was a lot of stuff, and it could be dangerous, right? So I learned that the respect for the workspace, and then when I started creating art in my teens, I would have a sort of workspace, and it only developed over time. Maybe 1998 or so in the summer, I moved back in with some family, and I had a garage all to myself, basically, and I would paint in there. And so going into the garage, coming out, writing, making music, going back and forth. I go from workstation to workstation. It's very precise. And but I can get back into the history of the workspace theory another time. Why do I think, I said, why does methodology matter? I need a transparent methodology so people don't think it's magic or mysticism, and I'm not joking about that. People might think it's magic. I'm developing a phenomenology of labor. So I got into the Thomas Aquinas there, the 3 or 4 scribes. It's kind of the same nonlinear practice. I believe in showing your work, not just the polished, packaged final product. People want and need to see the making of, or they might not believe you. As I was talking about scribes earlier, we're descendants of writers, of scribes. I got into the other video of woven text and woven thought, basically thought as woven, which leads to the relational database, which I talked about a little bit, the different tables and the database schema or whatever, and the connection of the relations. Another idea is that the workspace or thought space are polyhedra, kind of complex polyhedrons. My method is iterative, evolutionary, procedural. I do these reviews and these explanations of methodologies because I want to show the procedures, routines, the recipes, so I can be transparent and accountable, and so my art and research can be reproducible, can be reproduced by anyone. I'm very inspired by the Venetian Arsenal, the Arsenal of Venice. That was a massive operation. I call them art operations, but it was pre-capitalism. But it was a huge production facility. They could pump out I don't know how many ships per day or whatever. It was incredible. Their naval fleets that they were able to furnish with fully operational ships. The earlier video was called Archives Land or Archive Land. And that's what I call the sublime warehouse. It's the idea of the world, the sphere. I call it the globe, the sphere. I call it historiosphere because it's history happening all at once on a sphere. And the idea of the archives line comes from one of my novels, The Archives Project. It's where the historiosphere is a giant data warehouse, the sublime warehouse. And that goes back 10 years ago, 2016. I was talking about art operations and global art market, art exchange operations. Recently I was transcribing actually the book, the essay by Umberto Eco on Thomas Aquinas aesthetics and the thought of Thomas Aquinas. I was transcribing very slowly on paper on a notebook. And I would check, make sure, go back and forth, transcribe, make sure I got it right because I had to go slow because I didn't want to make any mistakes. Because after that I was writing it onto index cards. And then I take the index card to my computer. I transcribe it. I do research it, or I look through my archives, I select some text, I print it out, I come back, I read it, I underline it, I write index cards, I go back to the other computer. It's a whole process going from station to station, from medium to medium, from task to task. So I'm always making citations, checking the work, reflecting, review and reflect continuously. It's a form of distributed note-taking too, because I have different notebooks, different areas where I take notes. Even on my phone, I'm outside sometimes. And what I said about the agentic AI, like in the workspace, they're executing workflows. It's not the same as chatbots, They're actually executing workflows. So I think we need to understand workflow management methodologies, as I was talking about in workspace management. I'm going to do a video probably just on workspace management. So we need a workspace theory. My workspace is designed as a manufacturing operation, what I call an art operation, with inflows and outflows. The Historiotheque is the name of my art studio and sound design research laboratory, which is actually akin to a computer. I resemble physical computations in a sense, algorithms across space, procedural, but the routines are like manual, physical. What else? Yeah, parasitic motility in Feldenkrais. The use of force, it's unnecessary muscle work versus what he calls potent action. It's action performed with no force resistance. Reversibility is important. Movement is truly conscious and well organized only if you can stop it, reverse it, or alter its trajectory at any second during its path without a sudden increase in effort. I work like recently I launched up the art operation. I got what I call an art burst for a couple of weeks, and then I'm going to shut down soon, go a couple of months probably without really just doing basic work, but house cleaning basically, documentation, accounting, long tail of analysis I call it. How many of these have we got? So moving from workstation to workstation is a dialectical or dialogical movement. You have like workstation 1, workstation 2. Sometimes I just go back and forth. From then I have a third one. I find that gives a rhythm to the work, and I think that rhythm, I'll get into that too, and I've talked a lot about rhythm. So it's a nonlinear hyper-reflexive practice. It can be dangerous, that's why I document it so carefully. Things happen in the wrong order sometimes, you can get confused. I often have to go backwards to see what I was doing. You can actually reverse the whole sequence of movements to physically then go back. And it does feel like kind of like time travel, like William Burroughs spoke a lot and wrote a lot about those aspects of the cut up, of reality being like cut up like frames, You're walking down the street and you see like someone in the window and you look over there, you see a car, like we think it's happening like in this Cartesian, like Euclidean space, but really it's almost topological, So the workspace plus art operator, art operation is a system. It can be perturbed, but it's anti-fragile. Actually, perturbation is one of the main ways to increase creativity and productivity as a consequence. It's in a dynamic equilibrium. Deltas in the workspace, Delta-Workspace. That's my Delta-Workspace theory. Like I'm saying, like when you're working, you see a change, you observe a change in the workspace and your experimentation. in your experimental design, you see a change, you note it, you review, you document, repeat as needed. The equation I have is like A prime equals M in brackets A. It just means that the A prime is a modulation of A, You're always modulating. In my design, my visual design, I call them art modulations of noise fields, but here I'm calling them art fields for now. So I was saying, in a sense, like I am the methodology. That's kind of another thing that I can get into, but like I was saying in research, if you skip steps, you miss the fullness of the argument. I call that fullness of mind, or mind-fulness. My work is to find invariants and isomorphisms. I work with what I call the unified field theory of experience. These days it really has a lot to do with parasitic motility, that parasitic effort. It can lead to what I call historiophanies, which are, historiopathies, which are historical pathologies, which I think I've talked about elsewhere, and that's about it for now. It was kind of like just following the Refcards there, but look, this is Pablo Picasso. I think he worked in actual physical workspaces, and I think that's like a lost art in many ways. That people are working digitally, and I'm telling you, you can shuffle boxes of index cards. You can make this is all a variable geometry. I take all this down and move it into the other room. Like I have several rooms, and turn it into a recording studio, research lab. That's about it. It's the art operation at the Historiotheque. That's what it's called, and thanks for listening.